Thank you, Dr. Amar Al-Rabai and Dr. Abdullah Al-Hawaj and Dr. Alam Ahmed for taking the time to discuss the up-and-coming WASD conference. I want to especially thank Dr. Alam Ahmed for attending this talk as well. The World Association for Sustainable Development is in its 7th year. Who were the original parties involved?
We started back in 2000. A conference was organized in Pakistan at Karachi University, and there were experts from all over the world, and we were discussing issues about the need for information and literature and then body of knowledge about sustainable development. And that idea then formulated more formally in our first meeting in London in 2003. Then it became a regular event. 2004 we went to Edinburgh, and then 2005 we went to Al Ain in the United Arab Emirates, and then in 2006 we went to Italy, University of Naples, and 2007 we went to Australia. And 2008 we went back to Brighton, and this year we're here in Bahrain. So the idea is all around why we're traveling so much, because we believe the issues of sustainable developments, while they are global, but they do require local actions. So we believe in global issues to tackle sustainable development, or all issues to do with sustainability, but they also need local actions. And by going to different continents and different places, we learn more about the local approach in tackling these issues.
And so the purpose of the WASD conferences is to...
The purpose of our conferences, we have started, as I said, for 7 or 8 years, looking at issues of sustainability from a multidisciplinary approach. So number one is to bring different disciplines, different thinking about the topic, how do they somehow or another contribute to achieve sustainable development. And that means we have to bring scientists on technology management front, public health expert, finance, economist, education, knowledge, people about ICT, and so on and so forth. And the second objective is to try to help through a framework people from the developing countries, the poor countries, also enable them to attend these conferences. And we have a program every year. We try to have people shortlisted for who should be supported financially to come and attend this conference. So we don't want to be holding the conferences while people from poor countries, they cannot attend. So we have been, and this year, also with the support of Ahlia University, we have been able to bring, I think, around 15 from developing countries under the sponsorship program. And the third objective is to try to establish a network of experts from across the developing and developed countries. So we believe the issues of sustainability are not just for the poor, but also for the rich. We had an example in the United Kingdom 2 years ago. If you remember, we have been running short of water. We went to Australia 2007, and we have been told you have to make your shower only 5 minutes because there's not much water. So the problems are global, and that's why we try also to bring that to people understanding. We need to work together.
Dr. Rabai, might you speak to how the financial crisis has affected our environment globally as well as locally?
Almost 80% of the world population, they live in the developing countries. And when we speak about sustainable development, we mean development for the 80% of the world population. And it is a noble idea because it is based on the assumption that the developing countries, if they ever be in a position to make progress, then development has to come from within. And that's why sustainable development will empower the people in the developing countries to make progress and to achieve the ultimate objectives of human as well as economic and social developments. That's why the concept is very important, and a conference like this will highlight the importance of, let's say, the challenges that facing many of the developing countries, including the food, agriculture, industry, water, environment, and these are all important issues attached to the subject of sustainable development. Now, the last 2 or 3 years, then because of the financial crisis, of course, is becoming a global economic crisis, which simply means that the crisis will be affecting everybody, and in particular those people in the developing countries. Now, to achieve sustainable development, you need to have an institution. So the institutional structure of any society is crucial and critical. But you can achieve that with the financial resources that needed in order to help sustaining development in these countries. Many of the poor countries, they are hard hit. Now, if you look at the flow of capital into these countries, if you look at the export and import in these countries, if we look at the foreign direct investment and all the financial assistance coming to these countries, they are all affected because of this financial crisis that is influencing and affecting everybody in the world. So sustainable development requires mainly money and requires financial resources for the sake of doing research, public awareness, helping in particular those who are in need in agriculture sectors and in the rest of the society. All of them across the sectors of the society will be affected by the financial crisis.
Please describe what is meant by sustainable development.
Sustainable development has become or has been a buzzword for the last 10 or 15 years, and I think it's only just been proceeded with this financial crisis. But sustainable development as a word or as a concept, so far there are more than 500 definitions in the literature, and a different perspective, each one of them offering an approach or a perspective or a concept as to what does it really mean. But to give a simple answer of what is exactly sustainable development means so far, it is a multidisciplinary process by which different disciplines and activities within the globe could all together work to achieve one aim, which is like what Professor Rabi earlier said, is linking the current with the future, but also thinking of the past, because we can learn from the past. So in simple answer, we can achieve a sustainable future if we all work together. That include politicians, include educators like ourselves in universities, include industries using sustainable methods of production and manufacturing, include tourism agents, for example, or tourism industry, making sure they can conserve what is being used by holiday makers and so on, include people like in the far front of social science, changing the behavior of individuals. So it's not going to work if we're still going to throw plastic bags after we use them. So it's a combination of every discipline working together in a multidisciplinary process to achieve that goal of making the future as prosperous as we are now enjoying it.
So who are the people or institutions that are most affected by the global crisis?
I think if you come to individuals or institutions, it depends on how do you look at it. If you look at it from country's perspective, then you could easily say developing countries are most likely the one who have been severely affected by this crisis. But again, when you say that, you have to be very careful, because we now, for example, in the UK, we have millions of people who are now jobless. They're not having any work to do. Those who work as workers in manufacturing, in car industries, America is another example. So if to answer your question, I think individuals could be individuals anywhere, whether they were poor or not, they have been heavily affected. Again, in institutions, although so far the trend is public institutions have not been affected seriously as manufacturing sectors or our holiday sectors or other kind of sectors, because we still need the teachers, we still looking after educators, we still need the public health services. So, but generally speaking, globally, everyone is being hit somehow or another, because car manufacturing in the UK or in Germany is not just affecting those who are working in those plants, but it's affecting some or a family or a worker, say, in South Africa, because they're the plant for Volkswagen in South Africa. So it does affect anyone, I think, somehow or another. So we all been hit somehow, although some of us might benefiting from the scenario now. For example, I remember an interview with in one of the BBC channels, and they interviewed a family man, and he said, I'm happy with the financial crisis. And they asked him, why are you happy? He said, because I used to pay £1,500 for my mortgage, now I'm only paying £700, because Gordon Brown's makes the interest rate from 6 or 5 to 0, why not? So it's quite interesting to see as people even now feel it is quite somehow or another not heavily affecting people.
So of those sectors who are less affected by the current crisis, who are still able to pay their mortgages and plan their vacations, How would you say that these folks should discern the importance of this conference?
The topic of the conference, first of all, is an international. I mean, everybody is, as both colleagues have mentioned, everybody is affected by the financial crisis. So there will be many sectors who will be benefiting from this conference, including even decision makers, including leaders. We should not disintegrate things. The financial crisis has so many effects in so many areas, and that's the reason why Ahlia University have chosen to host such important conference. Because, first of all, Ahlia University would like to make sure it supports scientific education, scientific research. Secondly, this topic is so hot, it's very important. So many people who are affected. We feel, although people think, it's the United States of America and the big financial companies, or they were affected. In fact, poor people are those who are more affected than the others. The developing countries are affected more than the developed countries. So hosting this conference in Bahrain, we believe that we could be effective, and we believe now that we have, from the top, the leaders of this country, the decision makers, and us, a common goal. The common goal is to make sure that we invest in the brain of the Bahrainis, the GCCs, the Arabs, and the world as a whole, because we feel investing in human resources is the lasting investment. Everything is going to evaporate or disappear, or this, like even our oil or our gas or something, but to invest in people, I think we have done. So that's the reason why Ahlia University hosting this conference. It's an opportunity, because in Ahlia University, one of the largest school or largest college in Ahlia University is the business college. We have really professors and scientists in that college which could give something. So we have to react to that. We cannot just go and tackle everything. In the business college in this university, we have professors who had a lot of research in certain areas, who believe that they can do something, and this is an opportunity. So when Professor Alam contacted the university about 18 months ago and was wondering whether we can host this conference, the topic and also the university have the resources to do it. I cannot host a conference when I don't have, for example, certain numbers of professionals in that field. But so when Professor Alam talked to us about it, I find that's a great opportunity for Ahlia University. It's a chance for my professors, a chance for all the scientists we have to meet with the top people. There is many experts, the many professors. There's a lot of even decision makers going to be in this conference. And the topic is a very wide. I mean, when you're thinking of course, the financial crisis is now, but its impact now, it's more important, because some of us think the financial crisis may have evaporated or may in its way of going, but what about its impacts in many different areas? And that's why when we come to this conference, we want to learn from the financial crisis. For example, I've learned something as a president of a private institution, as the first private university in Bahrain. 3 years ago, everybody was supporting privatization up to the extent they said without limit. When the financial crisis came, some of the big private institution was calling for government's help. So it looks like then we cannot really privatize things without limit. We do need a coordination. We do need a collaboration. So I'm looking at it even from the educational point of view. As a university, few months ago in Bahrain, they were thinking of that private university were established for the sake of making profits. What about the standards? And there's a lot of talks. So, in fact, last week, I have delivered a lecture in the 18th meeting of the public presidents of universities in GCC countries. And I've talked about something which I've learned from the financial crisis, the mixed university, mixed in financing the university. I'm talking about the government must be involved in financing private universities. They must support private universities with a very clear condition not to interfere in the scientific and not to interfere in the administration of the university, but they have the right to put their legislatives, the rules, they have the right to monitor. So to put the legislation and to monitor universities, you should be supporting these universities financially, you should be supporting this university morally, and you should give all the support. I've learned that from the financial crisis. You know, if you have asked me this question maybe 3 years ago, I would have said, well, leave us alone. But now when I look after that, we shouldn't be left alone. But we should be coordinating our work, we should be collaborating. The government should really help private universities, and that's why governments are allowed to legislate for us, to monitor what we are doing. And I think this is to do with the sustainable development, because I feel it's very important. When we think about many years ago, we are talking about development. In fact, we have here what we call the EDP. I think we would like this also to be probably in the future mainly sustainable development rather than just development. Development is a part of the sustainable development, and I think it's very important. So hosting this conference with this distinguished number of professors and scientists from all over the world, I think something we should be very proud, and I'm hoping that we will make sure the outcome of this conference will be utilized, will be used, and that our government and other governments will take a great stride in implementing all the things which comes from that conference.
Would anybody else like to further that?
Yeah, I wanted to say something to follow upon what Dr. Abdullah is saying regarding the financial institution that will be affected by the financial crisis. Now, globally, there are a number of international institutions that donate and provide funding for many projects in the developing countries. Here we're talking about sustainable development, and sustainable development mainly concern the developing countries themselves. So in the last 2 or 3 years, an institution like the World Bank, the IMF, the various institutions that are related to the United Nations, they're all, of course, struggling of finding enough fund in order to carry on their project in many of the developing countries. The developing countries need funding for health, education, building infrastructure, technology transfer, and all these are important and requires funding. So the developing countries, and because of this financial crisis, they are directly affected because of the lack of financial resources for a development project themselves.
What do you think young people have to gain from a conference such as the WASD conference?
I will answer you with a very good example. Have been here in 2005, so it could be duplicated here. In 2005, we had this conference in United Arab Emirates in Al Ain, and it was hosted by the United Arab Emirates University. And I remember when we saw the hall where we have the conference, was a massive one in Sheraton, and I said to them, where are the rest of your students? Because there were few students, they told us they have selected some students to attend. Because the delegates were like 300 or something. And I said to them, what about the other students, particularly females? And they said to bring the female, they have some kind of procedure for female students to join, to come, they have to get some process and agreement, blah, blah, blah. And I said to them, important to bring these females because this is the future of the country. What happened is, they said, can you bring that? I said, yes, you can. The hall is empty, fill it with any students you want. They're not going to make any difference. So anyway, as a result, the room was full, like nearly 700. All the students came. The interaction we had after that, between sessions, you find each of the delegates is being surrounded by 5 or 10 students. Different, and this is all about exchange of knowledge. And I think they will not just learn to knowledge about a specific topic, but also they will learn about different experiences. And I think they will have the opportunity also to learn from world experts. So for example, there's many, just to mention a few, there are ministers. We have the leading African minister for technology, which is from Uganda. He's the first African minister, or the first African country to designate a minister for ICT. So he's coming to speak in the conference. We have, for example, within the Middle East, we have Warsaw is a ministerial post, the director of the National Research Center of Egypt, which is the largest research center, I think, in the area. We have people who are going to be expert in sustainability and business. So the students will, as Professor Abdullah said, they will listen and they will engage with the best experts, whom otherwise you have to either read their books or watch some podcasts like this in the university and so on. And again, it's not easy to get all of them. We have speakers coming from Australia, America, New Zealand. We have people coming from India, coming from South Africa, as far as South Africa, from West Indies and Caribbean. So to get all these people in 3 rooms, this is a huge exchange of information, exchange of ideas, and also for us, not because we are in the UK, we are going to learn many things about how Bahrain's education system, how they're tackling issues of water shortage, issues to do with desalination projects, issues to do with the culture. So that's why we keep reiterating the same point. Globally thinking, but locally acting. So it will also be a learning process for all of us who are coming from outside Bahrain. And that's why people are very keen on coming to these conferences. And I know some people they will be, and they are traveling for nearly 2 days. Some people come from America, from New Zealand to arrive here. So for young people, to come to your answer, they will see a global perspective in a very easy and smooth approach.
If we move to the future, can I ask a broader question? What do you think young people and WASD, Ahlia University, might help to evoke in young people to avoid this kind of crisis in the future?
This is a very good question, I mean, I think, of course, Professor Alam have nearly answered the question without, stressing on, but I think, first of all, young people who will be, inshallah, coming to the conference, we are really requesting all our students to attend the conference, to learn from the conference. It's a rare opportunity for young people to meet with all these scientists. Some of them came with great ideas. Some of them came with great projects, which they were really very successful, like what Dr. Alam said about the traffic in India, and many others, The most important thing, these young people are going to be the leaders of the future. So we would like to make sure a part of their thinking is sustainability. A part of their thinking is to think, globally. Not to think in a very small directions, because it affects everybody. The financial crisis, we thought it affects 1 or 2 companies in the States, but look what happened, So this is an idea and this is an opportunity really for young people to go to be there with this distinguished number of scientists, distinguished number of professors who are themselves thirsty to teach these young people, who want really these young people to learn from their mistakes even, not only their successes. And I think by Ahlia University, with, of course, WASD, achieving this stage, we were, it's not easy. We were worried, can we do it or not? We're only a young university, we're only 7 years old university, and sometimes, but we've managed to do it. The WASD organization was so helpful in organizing a lot of things. This is, again, it's a time where we want all our young people to think globally, to think with a sustainable development thinking rather than, as I said, a project which could be done, but after 10 or 15 years it will collapse because we did not take that other dimension of sustainability. We believe in Bahrain. I always heard that from the Prime Minister. I always heard that we do not look like fast as the others, but we always look at the sustainability of projects we do. Sometimes we as young people, we feel, why couldn't we beat such a country in such a thing? And they always used to say, well, we can do that, but we don't know what will happen 3 days later. Let's make sure that what we do will continue. So in this conference, this is an opportunity for these people, for us also, for all the staff of Ahlia University, especially the topic of it. As I said earlier, the largest college in this university is the business college. Bahrain prime services is going to be the financial sector. Professor Amr talked a few minutes ago about the Islamic finance in Bahrain. And I believe, that this model is the most suitable, provided. And we would like to make sure a full transparency is there. We would like also to make sure that also those people who are running Islamic institutes should look at the sustainability of their development programs, because we did have little problem with some of the operations of the Islamic banking in the area, especially which was to do with the قطاع العقارات,
Real estate.
real estate. So I would love to see them learning from this conference, and they think even in that real estate, this and the sustainability of it, because as Professor Amr said, it has a the human edge in it. And if we look with the transparency and if we look with the realization of everything, I think this is a great opportunity for everybody to join this conference and to learn from this conference and to teach others from this conference.
And I may also add one thing. Now, when you read the literature of the World Bank, they come to the conclusion that the problems of the developing countries is due to lack of public participation. And this is, I think, very important in the process of development itself. So this conference will open the opportunity to young people to come and participate themselves directly in this process. And it is a learning process. And this is, of course, in particular for young students. It will be a step forward to learn about delivery in terms of paper, to learn about how to, let's say, themselves ask a question. And this is all important. And these, of course, young people will be the leader of the future. And these conferences is a training for them. And that's why this conference is important.
And on that note, it just leaves me to say thank you, Dr. Amr. Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. Thank you, Dr. Ahlam, for your time and those fascinating insights. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you indeed.
Thank you very much.